What's going on, everybody? JD here. I don't know if I'd call this the first installment. I've done another review of like the Rode mic thing, but I want to start coming to you guys and telling you a little bit about the gear I'm using to do these shoots. Particularly being that I'm on a very, very tight budget and just starting up my photography business, I'd like to do a value comparison kind of deal, or not comparison, but I think you get where I'm heading. Budget gear that works really, really good. That's kind of how I've been able to be successful based on being very, very smart about the money I spend. That, and you'll realize very, very quickly, you can go spend thousands of dollars on camera gear, but you'll still take crap pictures if you don't understand what you're doing and how to best use your environment, use your equipment. I mean, I've seen people with 5D Mark IIIs and Mark IVs that shoot stuff that's no better than what a lot of people can do with their phones. So, I'd like to focus on getting the best bang for your buck in regards to photography equipment and really making it work. The topic of today's video is the Canon Nifty 50. Now, this is that's a common term. It's been used for a long time with the 50mm lenses, but this is the latest iteration of that lens. This is a 50mm EFS F1.8 STM. It does not have image stabilization, but for photographers, it's not really as big of a deal as it is for videographers. Image stabilization really comes into play when you have longer focal lengths that you're trying to be successful with. If you're sitting here with a lens that's that big, it's harder to keep still, but a little bitty booger like that, it's not too bad. So, what is the 50mm focal length, and what's it useful for? Well, first and foremost, I used this lens on the Kyle Voss, the Fab Forum shoot when I shot his 69 C10. It's a portrait length, particularly on APS-C cameras, which that's all this fits. EFS mount it's approximately 80. I think it's like 85 or 88 millimeters. It's 50 times 1.6. The crop factor on an APS-C Canon camera is 1.6. So at that focal length, you start to get some background, foreground separation. And with this aperture speed, it's a fast lens. Speed's a common like identifier, but aperture size. The smaller, it's sort of like wire gauges. The smaller the number, the bigger the opening. In regards to aperture, so for example, 1.8 is one of the larger sizes of openings, which lets in more light, makes a shallower depth of field, so you can get blurry backgrounds and blurry foregrounds with focus on the subject. And it really, really, really helps with like low light shooting. That shoot with Kyle, I'm struggling to talk today like I normally do. I'm sorry, guys. That shoot was done at what's called magic hour, right at sunset, just before. So I've got warm light. I've got no direct sun that's really blinding and really difficult to control. The lower the sun, the softer the light, the easier it is to manipulate said light and try to get warm, nice, aesthetically pleasing photos. But in that lower light, had I not had as fast of an aperture or as much light being allowed into the lens, it had been more difficult to capture the shots that I did. Also, with a lens like this, it works great for people. It works great for portrait photography, headshots. I use it for almost every engagement, couple, wedding shoot. I wish I had a little bit shorter length, like 35mm, but this 50 works great for it. The 35 I want is retardedly expensive. But I'll get there. Anyway, I'm going to share a few photos, particularly from the Kyle Voss shoot and a couple of other photos, so you can kind of get an idea of what 50mm looks like. Check it out. next thing I want to talk about in regards to this lens is the focusing distance. There's a couple terms. Macro and non-macro are the two terms. Macro meaning you can get really, really close on your subject. Your focal or your focus distance is pretty short. And then your non-macro typically is anything longer than right up on it. This is not a macro lens. But it has a very, very short distance that it's effective to. 0.35 or a meter, or for us Americans, 1.1 foot or approximately 13.2 inches. Take 12 inches, 0.1, 1.2 additional to make 13.2. That means that you can be about that far away from your subject and snap a photo of it. Now, shooting in RAW, 50, I think it's 5100, on my camera I have it set up, it's like 5100 and something pixels by 31 or 200 pixels tall. Very non-scientific terms there, obviously. That creates a really cool image. I think I just kicked the tripod, sorry guys. That creates a really cool image and a lot of detail. For example, the photo I'm about to pop up of my watch, I shot that at the very, very edge of the effective focal or focus distance. I keep calling it focal. Anyway, check out the picture. All right, so you can see that it's pretty close. I'm actually going to share a couple more at close range. The next one I'm going to share is of some moss on a branch. I did a shoot at a historical site here in South Carolina, in Walhalla, actually, and did some color editing, kind of made kind of a grungy shoot. So I'll share that up. Now, the cool thing about that photo is that I shot that wide open. By wide open, I mean the aperture all the way out at f1.8. And you're going to notice in the foreground, like up close to you, is blurry. You get a little bit far away, which would be the 13 inches or so. And you'll notice that it's in focus right around that kind of knot hole or whatever in the tree. And then everything beyond that is out of focus again. So you get this really cool like appearance of distance or feeling of distance in that photo. So that's the really neat thing about the 50mm focal length, particularly in this lens having such a short focal distance. Focal it describes length, not distance. Focus distance. It focuses as short as. Ugh. That leads me to my last and my biggest point. This lens is $125. Now let me put that into perspective. Your camera bodies, T5, T6i nowadays, even used T3s, you're gonna like what I'm shooting on a T3. You're gonna spend a couple $100 for a body worth having. If you buy a T5 or a T6, I model or not, $500-600. If you go buy an 80D or 70D, almost $1,000. To have a lens that you can pick up for $125 that produces some of the results I've shown you is awesome. It's absolutely awesome. That's a great deal. And if you, I can't say enough about having this lens in your arsenal. For the money, for the size aperture it's got, for the common focal length, that's a very good looking focal length, for the fact that it's got such a short focus distance. At 13 inches you can get really up on your subjects and capture some detail. I use that a lot when I'm shooting cars for like capturing details of badges or custom wheels, things of that nature. It's just hard to beat. I can't recommend it enough. So yeah, that's why you need one of these. Let me put the badge up front. That's why you need one of these. And that's about all I've got to say about this thing. It's been the best money I've spent. That being said, I've got a link in my description if you'd like to go check it out. Other than that, like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTuber stuff that I still feel uncomfortable saying. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.